When I was growing up in Cincinnati in the 1960s and 70s, there was a local TV program on Saturday nights called Screamin' with the Cool Ghoul. The Cool Ghoul and his invisible friend with the Boris Karloff voice, these were both played by the same actor, Dick Von Hayne, hosted old scary movies ranging from Bela Lugosi's Dracula to Roger Corman's House of Usher with Vincent Price, to Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space, to the famous clunker, They Saved Hitler's Brain. The Cool Ghoul brought us the best and the worst of horror movies throughout the year. Now, aside from Screamin', nothing puts me in the Halloween mood like spooky poetry. This is Pat Tully of the Ketchikan Public Library, and this is Reading Aloud. This evening, I'm going to be reading classic poetry for the season. Let's get started. We'll start with Shakespeare from Macbeth, Act 4, Scene 1, Song of the Witches. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a fenny snake, in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth boil and bubble. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. And what would Halloween be without Edgar Allan Poe? The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, In there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mane of lord or lady perched above my chamber door. Perched above a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. Perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though my crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is only its stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his song one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining, that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath sent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, O quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert island enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore. Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, I said, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting, get thee back into the tempest, and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Eldorado, also by Edgar Allan Poe. Gaily bedight, a gallant knight, in sunshine and in shadow, had journeyed long, singing a song in search of Eldorado. But he grew old, this knight so bold, and o'er his heart a shadow fell as he found no spot of ground that looked like Eldorado. And as his strength failed him at length, he met a pilgrim shadow. Shadow, said he, where can it be, this land of Eldorado? Over the mountains of the moon, down the valley of the shadow, ride, boldly ride, the shade replied, if you seek for Eldorado. And finally, The Sleeper by Edgar Allan Poe. At midnight in the month of June, I stand beneath the mystic moon. An opiate vapor, dewy, dim, exhales from out her golden rim. And softly dripping, drop by drop, upon the quiet mountain top, steals drowsily and musically into the universal valley. The rosemary nods upon the grave, the lily lolls upon the wave. Wrapping the fog about its breast, the ruin moulders into rest. Looking like Lethe, see the lake, a conscious slumber seems to take, and would not for the world awake. All beauty sleeps, and lo, there lies Irene with her destinies. O lady bright, can it be right, this window open to the night? The wanton airs from the treetop laughingly through the lattice drop. The bodiless airs, a wizard rout, flit through thy chamber in and out, and wave the curtain canopy so fitfully, so fearfully, above the closed and frigid lid, 'neath which thy slumbering soul lies hid, that o'er the floor and down the wall, like ghosts the shadows rise and fall. O lady dear, hast thou no fear? Why and what art thou dreaming here? Sure thou art come o'er far-off seas, a wonder to these garden trees. Strange is thy pallor, strange thy dress, strange above all thy length of tress, and all this solemn silentness. The lady sleeps, O may her sleep, which is enduring, be deep. Heaven have her in its sacred keep. This chamber changed for one more holy, this bed for one more melancholy. I pray to God that she may lie forever with unopened eye, while the pale sheeted ghosts go by. My love, she sleeps, O may her sleep, as it is lasting, so be deep. Soft may the worms about her creep, far in the forest, dim and old. For her may some tall vault unfold, some vault that oft has flung its black and winged panels fluttering back, triumphant o'er the crested palls of her grand family funerals. Some sepulchre remote alone, against whose portals she hath thrown in childhood many an idle stone, some tomb from out whose sounding door she ne'er shall force an echo more. Thrilling to think, poor child of sin, it was the dead who groaned within. Now let's move on from Poe to some other spooky poetry. I Felt a Funeral in My Brain by Emily Dickinson. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading till it seemed that sense was breaking through. And when they all were seated, a service like a drum kept beating till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul, with those same boots of lead again. Then space began to toll, as all the heavens were a bell and being but an ear, and I, in silence, some strange race, wrecked solitary here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down, and hit a world at every plunge, and finished knowing then. Next poem is Haunted by Siegfried Sassoon. Evening was in the wood, lowering with storm. A time of drought had sucked the weedy pool and baked the channels. Birds had done with song. Thirst was a dream of fountains in the moon, or willow music blown across the water, leisurely sliding on by weir and mill. Uneasy was the man who wandered, brooding, his face a little whiter than the dusk. A drone of sultry wings flickered in his head. The end of sunset burning through the boughs, died in a smear of red. Exhausted hours cumbered, and ugly sorrows hemmed him in. He thought somewhere there's thunder as he strove to shake off dread. He dared not look behind him, but stood, the sweat of horror on his face. He blundered down a path, trampling on thistles, in sudden race to leave the ghostly trees. And soon I'll be in open fields, he thought, and half-remembered starlight on the meadows, scent of mown grass and voices of tired men, fading along the field paths, home and sleep, and cool swept upland spaces, whispering leaves, and far off the long churring nightjar's note. But something in the wood, trying to daunt him, led him confused in circles through the thicket. He was forgetting his old wretched folly, and freedom was his need. His throat was choking. Barbed brambles gripped and clawed him round his legs, and he floundered over snags and hidden stumps, mumbling, "I will get out, I must get out," butting and thrusting up the baffling gloom, pausing to listen in a space twixt thorns. He peers around with peering, frantic eyes. An evil creature in the twilight looping flapped blindly in his face. Beating it off, he screeched in terror, and straightway something clambered heavily from an oak, and dropped, bent double, to shamble at him zigzag, squat and bestial. Headlong he charges down the wood, and falls, with roaring brain, agony, the snapped spark, and blots of green and purple in his eyes. Then the slow fingers groping on his neck, and at his heart the strangling clasp of death. Now this is a particularly poignant poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar. It's called The Haunted Oak. Pray, why are you so bare, O bough of the old oak tree? And why, when I go through the shade you throw, runs a shudder over me? My leaves were green as the best, I trow, and sap ran free in my veins. But I saw in the moonlight, dim and weird, a guiltless victim's pains. I bent me down to hear his sigh, I shook with his gurgled moan, and I trembled sore when they rode away and left him here alone. They charged him with the old, old crime, and set him fast in jail. Oh, why does the dog howl all night long, and why does the night wind wail? He prayed his prayer and swore his oath, and he raised his hands to the sky. But the beat of hoofs smote on his ear, and the steady tread drew nigh. Who is it rides by night, over the moonlit road? And what is the spur that keeps the pace? What is the galling goad? And now they beat at the prison door. Ho, keeper, do not stay. We are friends of him who you hold within, and we fain would take him away. From those who ride fast on our heels, with mind to do him wrong, they have no care for his innocence, and the rope they bear is long. They have fooled the jailer with lying words, they have fooled the man with lies. The bolts unbar, the locks are drawn, and the great door open flies. Now they have taken him from the jail, and hard and fast they ride. And the leader laughs low down in his throat, as they halt my trunk beside. Oh, the judge, he wore a mask of black, and the doctor one of white, and the minister with his oldest son was curiously bedight. O foolish man, why weep you now? 'Tis but a little space, and the time will come when these shall dread the memory of your face. I feel the rope against my bark, and the weight of him in my grain. I feel in the throe of his final woe the touch of my own last pain. And never more shall leaves come forth on the bough that bears the ban. I am burned with dread, I am dried and dead from the curse of a guiltless man. And ever the judge rides by, and goes to hunt the deer, and ever another rides his soul in the guise of a mortal fear. And ever the man, he rides me hard, and never a night stays he, for I feel his curse as a haunted bough on the trunk of a haunted tree. So the next poem is called Ghost House. It's by Robert Frost. I dwell in a lonely house I know, that vanished many a summer ago, and left no trace but the cellar walls, and a cellar in which the daylight falls, and the purple-stemmed wild raspberries grow. O'er ruined fences the grapevines shield, the woods come back to the mowing field. The orchard tree has grown one copse of new wood and old, where the woodpecker chops. The footpath down to the well is healed. I dwell with a strangely aching heart in that vanished abode, there far apart, on that disused and forgotten road, that has no dust bath now for the toad. Night comes, the black bats tumble and dart. The whippoorwill is coming to shout, and hush and cluck and flutter about. I hear him begin far enough away, full many a time to say his say, before he arrives to say it out. It is under the small, dim summer star. I know not who these mute folks are, who share the unlit place with me. Those stones out under the low-limbed tree doubtless bear names that the mosses mar. They are tireless folk, but slow and sad, though too close keeping are lass and lad, and none among them that ever sings, and yet, in view of how many things, as sweet companions as might be had. So next we've got Edna, St. Vincent Millay, The Little Ghost. I knew her for a little ghost that in my garden walked. The wall is high, higher than most, and the green gate was locked. And yet I did not think of that till after she was gone. I knew her by the broad white hat all ruffled she had on, by the dear ruffles round her feet, by her small hands that hung in their lace mitts austere and sweet, her gown's white folds among. I watched to see if she would stay, what she would do, and oh, she looked as though she liked the way I let my garden grow. She bent above my favorite mint with conscious garden grace. She smiled and smiled, there was no hint of sadness in her face. She held her gown on either side to let her slippers show, and up the walk she went with pride, the way great ladies go. And where the wall is built in new and is of ivy bare, she paused and then opened and passed through a gate that once was there. And now one of my favorite poets, Walt Whitman, The Mystic Trumpeter. Hark! Some wild trumpeter, some strange musician, hovering unseen in air, vibrates capricious tunes tonight. I hear thee, trumpeter, listening, alert, I catch thy notes, now pouring, whirring like a tempest round me, now low, subdued, now in the distance lost. Come nearer, bodiless one, haply in thee resounds some dead composer, haply thy pensive life was filled with aspirations high, uniformed ideals, waves, oceans musical, chaotically surging, that now, ecstatic ghost, close to me bending, thy cornet echoing, pealing, gives out to no one's ears but mine, but freely gives to mine, that I may thee translate. Blow, trumpeter, free and clear, I follow thee, while at thy liquid prelude, glad, serene, the fretting world, the streets, the noisy hours of day withdraw. A holy calm descends like dew upon me. I walk in cool, refreshing night, the walks of paradise. I scent the grass, the moist air, and the roses. Thy song expands my numbed, embonded spirit. Thou freest, launchest me, floating and basking upon heaven's lake. Blow again, trumpeter, from my sensuous eyes. Bring the old pageants, show the feudal world. What charm thy music works, thou makest pass before me. Ladies and cavaliers long dead, barons are in their castle halls, the troubadours are singing. Armed knights go forth to redress wrongs, some in quest of the Holy Grail. I see the tournament, I see the contestants encased in heavy armor, seated on stately, champing horses. I hear the shouts, the sounds of blows and smiting steel. I see the crusaders' tumultuous armies. Hark, how the cymbals clang. Lo, where the monks walk in advance, bearing the cross on high. Blow again, trumpeter, and for thy theme, take now the enclosing theme of all, the solvent and the setting, love that is the pulse of all, the sustenance and the pang, the heart of man and woman all for love. No other theme but love, knitting, enclosing, all diffusing love. Oh, how the immortal phantoms crowd around me. I see the vast alembic ever working. I see and know the flames that heat the world. The glow, the blush, the beating hearts of lovers. So blissful happy some, and some so silent, dark, and nigh to death. Love, that is all the earth to lovers. Love that mocks time and space. Love that is day and night. Love that is sun and moon and stars. Love that is crimson, sumptuous, sick with perfume. No other words but words of love. No other thought but love. Blow again, trumpeter, conjure war's wild alarminums. Swift to thy spell, a shuddering hum like distant thunder rolls. Lo, where the armed men hasten, lo, mid the clouds of dust, the glint of bayonets. I see the grime-faced cannoneers. I marked the rosy flash amid the smoke. I hear the cracking of the guns. Nor war alone, thy fearful music song, wild player, brings every sight of fear. The deeds of ruthless brigands, rapine, murder, I hear the cries for help. I see ships foundering at sea. I behold on deck and below deck the terrible tableau. O trumpeter, methinks I am myself the instrument thou playest. Thou meltest my heart, my brain. Thou movest, drawest, changest them at will. And now thy solemn notes send darkness through me. Thou takest away all cheering light, all hope. I see the enslaved, the overthrown, the hurt, the oppressed of the whole earth. I feel the measureless shame and humiliation of my race. It becomes all mine, mine too the revenges of humanity, the wrongs of ages, baffled feuds and hatreds. Utter defeat upon me weighs, all lost, the foe victorious. Yet, mid the ruins pride colossal stands, unshaken to the last, endurance, resolution to the last. Now, trumpeter, for thy close, vouchsafe a higher strain than any yet. Sing to my soul, renew its languishing faith and hope. Rouse up my slow belief, give me some vision of the future. Give me for once its prophecy and joy. O glad, exulting, culminating song, a vigor more than earth's is in thy notes. Marches of victory, man disenthralled, the conqueror at last. Hymns to the universal God from universal man, all joy. A reborn race appears, a perfect world, all joy. Women and men, in wisdom, innocence, and health, all joy. Riotous, laughing bacchanals filled with joy. War, sorrow, suffering gone, the rank earth purged, nothing but joy left. The ocean filled with joy, the atmosphere all joy. Joy, joy, in freedom, worship, love. Joy in the ecstasy of life. Enough to merely be, enough to breathe. Joy, joy, all over joy. So typical Walt Whitman. So next, we've got Carl Sandburg, theme in yellow. I spot the hills with yellow balls in autumn. I light the prairie cornfields, orange and tawny gold clusters, and I am called pumpkins. On the last of October, when dusk is fallen, children join hands and circle round me, singing ghost songs and love to the harvest moon. I am the jack-o'-lantern with terrible teeth, and the children know I am fooling. And finally, All Hallows by Louise Gluck. Even now this landscape is assembling. The hills darken. The oxen sleep in their blue yoke. The fields, having been picked clean, the sheaves bound evenly and piled at the roadside, among cinquefoil as the toothed moon rises. This is the barrenness of harvest or pestilence, and the wife leaning out the window with her hand extended as in payment, and the seeds distinct, gold, calling, come here, little one, and the soul creeps out of the tree. The end. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a very great Halloween and a good week.